Today we're going to take a look at the 1959 film Ben-Hur, directed by William Wyler, based off the Lew Wallace book by the same name, which was published in 1880. This film follows the tumultuous life of Judah Ben-Hur, played by Charlton Heston, whose story runs alongside the narrative of Christ. He goes from a prominent figure in the Judean community to a Roman slave after being betrayed by a childhood friend. After surviving a naval battle and rescuing a Roman officer, Judah is able to rise up, earn a name for himself in the Roman world, and then return to Judea, seeking revenge, his lost love, and his imprisoned mother and sister. After numerous brief encounters with Jesus and narrowly escaping death on a few occasions, Judah is ultimately successful in all of these endeavors. The film ends after Judah returns home to find his mother and sister cured of leprosy after witnessing Jesus' crucifixion and death. This film is not the first adaptation of Wallace's story. In fact, it's the third, but it's by far the most successful.
So the question is, why is this film so successful compared to the previous two versions and the 2016 remake? One of the major visual themes in this movie, and indeed in the genre of cine-antiquity, is the idea of Roman extravagance. Setting films in Imperial Rome gives the filmmakers, the costumers, and even the set designers a chance to show off the beauty and opulence of Rome. By visually showing the imposing might of Roman creations and wealth, filmmakers can imply the imposing might of the Romans themselves. It is also an excuse to show off some truly stunning aesthetics while still justifying them within the context of the film. Just like Cleopatra's triumphal entry into the city of Rome in 1963's Cleopatra, the consul's triumph in Ben-Hur is a moment meant to give the audience some epic visuals while also highlighting the extravagance of the characters. In Ben-Hur, this is especially jarring when compared to Judah's previous position as a galley slave, a miserable occupation that this Roman wealth depends on.
Another theme of the genre is the use of accents to differentiate between the heroes and villains.
Would I retain your friendship if I became an informant?
To tell me the names of criminals is hardly informing.
They're not criminals, Masala. They're patriots.
Patriots!
Like
Patriots!
Charlton Heston dons a strong American accent, and Romans like Pontius Pilate have British accents. Films like Quo Vadis, which was released in 1951, solidified this theme early in cine-antiquity by having the hero Marcus be played by a very American Robert Taylor, and Nero, the villain, be played by a very British Peter Ustinov.
Okay, perhaps this video doesn't need an intermission, but Ben-Hur has one. It's a lengthy film running more than 3.5 hours, and the length of the film is certainly just one part of how it fits into the typical format of epic films.
One of the most iconic scenes of cine-antiquity is the chariot race between Judah and Masala. This scene is the epitome of spectacle. It has massive crowds, larger-than-life statues, gripping action, and just enough violence to give it an edge. This type of action finds its foundation in the gladiatorial spectacle seen in films like Quo Vadis, and ultimately paved the way for epic films like Spartacus and Gladiator. This scene also showcases the extravagance of the upper-class Roman citizens, a theme which appears early on in other films like DeMille's Cleopatra, and is carried on well past Ben-Hur into other films of cine-antiquity.
Spectacle seems to be our word of choice, but there really isn't a movie that it could be applied to more fittingly. Not only does this scene draw the audience in with thrilling action and a meaningful impact on the story of Judah Ben-Hur's life, it also shows some interesting visual storytelling. Judah's former friend, Masala, swoops in for the race, driving a team of solid black horses, dressed in black himself. Judah, however, is dressed in light blue and driving a team of white horses. Though this kind of color coding may seem simplistic, dressing the villain in black makes him seem even more intimidating and menacing than usual. Masala's spiked chariot wheels certainly don't hurt that image either.
Ben-Hur also shares the thematic promotion of Christianity and an abhorrence to tyranny in order to appeal to its contemporary audience. Judah's life runs alongside that of Christ, and the centrality of the crucifixion and subsequent miracles at the end of the film clearly promote Christianity as the religion of the day. Similar to Quo Vadis, Ben-Hur was released when the wounds of World War II were fresh and the threat of communism was all too real. The film takes a firm anti-tyranny stance in order to address these realities that the audience would have been dealing with at the time.
Ben-Hur's approach to depicting Christ and Christianity is fascinating in that it's kind of circumspect, despite actually having Christ appear in the film. His voice is never heard and his face is never shown. In fact, in the one scene where he faces the camera, a dark shadow is edited onto his head, preventing him from being seen. Instead, throughout the film, we're treated to shots of the back of his head and his hands as we see the actions he performs. Although the movie is subtitled A Tale of the Christ, it's not so much a story of his life, but the story of his impact on the non-elites of Rome, like Ben-Hur and his leper family. In fact, the film almost entirely glosses over his resurrection, because for this particular film, Christ's disruption of the status quo during his lifetime is more important than his return.
So going back to our question, why is Wyler's Ben-Hur so much more successful than the other versions of the film? It's the continuation of the familiar themes that we know, love, and have come to expect from the epics of cine-antiquity. The accents that denote whether one is good or evil, the use of extravagance and spectacle to draw in audiences, whether contemporary or modern, and the themes like Christianity and anti-tyranny, which would have been incredibly relevant to contemporary audiences. Having star power in the form of Charlton Heston also didn't hurt Wyler's success. At the end of the day, Ben-Hur is an exciting and timeless part of cine-antiquity. Whether looking at the film from an analytical perspective or not, it's a solid and enjoyable film, fit for the whole family, no matter what age.